I can't believe I get to say this, but welcome to November's Make Bouquets and Chat video. I have never had flowers this late into the season. Today is November 8th, and so I'm super excited to be able to make the season's final bouquets with you all. And in this video, I'm going to chat about the evolution of how I think this business is going to go next year as it pertains to selling cut flowers. It's probably going to be a little bit out of left field, but I'm going to talk a little bit about things that I have realized from a personal perspective that have really influenced how I want to pursue this as a side hustle. So before we get into that chat, let's talk about the flowers that we have. We've got a gorgeous selection of predominantly mums and then filled in with some snapdragons and two different varieties of stock. So I've done a couple of videos over the past few weeks talking a bit more about how I was able to achieve this, as well as a farm tour that you can check out. But I harvested these mums a couple of days ago. So we did have a very hard frost yesterday. It went down to 28 degrees and these would have been toast. So I basically got them at the very last second. And I found that some of the white mums that got damaged earlier on with some light frost, you could see that there's a little bit of brown over here. Because most of the buds had not opened, they ended up recovering and they're totally usable. I don't know the names of these mums, unfortunately, but I am in love and I will be taking cuttings. This one I know the name of. It's called Pittsburgh Purple. This one was like watching paint dry open. They're finally open. And I had so many from just like a really small space. I would say from 2 plants, I probably got about 50 stems, like literally no exaggeration. And then this is like a different type of white mum over here. A couple of people have asked, have you noticed having a lot of aphids, especially on the spray type mums? And the answer is fortunately no. I didn't even know that was a thing. So maybe it was luck, but these are actually year 2 mum plants. So they were put into the ground last year. It was like around midsummer, so it was a little too late. And they just didn't thrive in their first season because of when they were put into the ground. So then they were able to overwinter, obviously, and then they put on really strong roots, lots of leafy green growth, and then here we are today. This is Maryland Cool Orange. I really like this. It has been a champ in frost. This bucket was harvested today, which meant that they have withstood a couple rounds of light frost, getting down to 32, 31 degrees, and one day at 28 degrees, and you can see they look great. So great learning for me, because while I can cover, work has just been so busy, and with fewer day length hours, I just don't want to go out with a flashlight. So this, I know next year is reliable for me to try to grow later in the season. This is the Avignon 2 in rose, I think it is. And so this is a different variety from the Cool Orange. And I'm just starting to get these in, but I will have a few leftover stems, and of course, Quartet and Stocks in terms of 2 varieties here. So we're going to be working with these flowers. We have taken refuge in the pole barn because, believe it or not, it's a little too sunny outside. So it's a little cooler in here and easier for me to work on top of the chest freezers. But what I want to start off with is a quick update on E, because there is relevancy here. She recently had her post 6 months treatment scans, and luckily they came back clean, meaning that she is still considered no evidence of disease from an MRI scan perspective. I use that term very specifically because technically one could still have cancer cells, like residual cells, stem cells that are floating around, but you need a certain amount, like millions of them, in order to see them on a scan. So that's why the language here is very important. But for the time being, we are able to enter into the holiday season with this nice peace of mind, which is just really such a gift. I would say that E's whole journey obviously had a big impact on our lives, but it has also really made me reconsider how I think about where the flower farm fits in our family's life. Because if there's one thing that the experience has taught me, it's something that we all know, which is that time is really precious. But I don't think anyone can fully comprehend what that means until you're put into a situation where perhaps yours or a certain loved one's mortality is seriously on the line. Even though we go into this holiday season with this peace of mind, I think in the back of my mind, could this be the last holiday season where we have this peace of mind? And so when you're framing things that way, it's not in necessarily a negative or a bad way. Let me close this door. It's more just the awareness that your time is so precious. And so you want to be able to spend it wisely and say no to things that may not make sense. So a good example is today I was invited to sell at a pop-up type of place where we were going to test out whether or not we should sell flowers with them. Very high traffic, great customers who go there that would fit the demographic of who we're trying to sell flowers to. And I said, no, I said, I don't have the time. Work was crazy this week. It would have been really stressful for me to try to figure out how to make the bouquets ahead of time. And so I politely turned it down. I may not sell as many flowers from what I'm going to do, but it preserves my time and the amount of time I get to spend with my family. And that was probably the biggest lesson for me this year, which is you cannot pay me enough money for the free time that I have allocated for my family. And so with that lens going into flower farming, the question then becomes, where does flower farming fit in there? Because it is a lot of time. It is really not worth it for the amount of money that I make, especially from cut flowers, but it's something that I enjoy and I want to make it feel meaningful and still motivating for me. At this point in our lives, I am lucky enough to say that we don't have to do flower farming on the side for money. The supplemental income is nice, but we are at a point now where it's not needed for us to be able to pay the bills. And so in some ways, the concept of doing this for money is less motivating. One of the things that really motivated me when I had my prior e-commerce company was the fact that it was driven with a mission to give back. And this kind of thinking of where the flower farm evolves also started with me starting to wind down that side business. Even though I haven't been actively promoting or doing stuff with that, I've still been selling soap, especially wholesale. And I think it's just time to say goodbye because it's too much time for what I get out of it. But over the course of the serious, I would say 7 years that I was running it, we were able to give back $50,000 to different organizations, communities, and that was super fulfilling. Like I was able to go visit some of the places where we gave back, like Uganda, in India, and it was just really cool to be able to see that my impact could really stretch far if I was leveraging the cash flow that I had in causes that I believed in. And I think that's the direction that I want to continue, but with the flower farm. And right now in the United States, I'm sure many of you have heard who are international that we are in a ridiculous shutdown. I don't care what part of the political spectrum you're on, it's ridiculous. I am actually not formally affiliated with any party. I vote on whoever I think is the best candidate. And I am so disappointed in all of the elected representatives for what is happening. These shutdowns are not necessarily new for us, but the implications of the shutdown always seem to get worse and worse. And so this time around, there's more consequences because of things that have been happening, especially on the local level. Local food banks are being pressured, and there's just all of this opportunity for community to step up. One of the things that I have liked actually about more conservative Republican ideology is the fact that they believe that in times of hardship, one should lean on their neighbors and local community. Now, I'm not sure if I'm seeing that across the board from those who preach that, but that is actually something that I definitely really want to practice. And so I firmly believe that if you are in a position where you can give, you should. And this is not always something that I thought or believed in. I think it's really over the course of maybe the last decade and just recognizing the amount of privilege that I've had with what I was given from how hard my parents worked, not having to take on debt to go to college, and really getting me into a great spot today that makes me really thankful of how I can live life in a way that's less stressful than a lot of other people, and what are ways that I can give back so that other people might also have a little bit more of an equal opportunity to be able to work hard and also reap the benefits. And when I think about what motivates me in terms of wanting to get out and harvest, it's knowing that there is a potential impact that I can make. These flowers, we are going to be selling and donating all of the proceeds to our local food bank. These are going to be sold at $20 for the mixed bouquets, and then we're going to do some $15 bunches for the mums that are left over, because I don't expect to be able to make enough mixed bouquets. One of the other things was throughout the season, I relied a little bit more on a flower subscription for my retail sales. And throughout the season, depending on if there was a need, we actually donated the proceeds from the share of that week's to a organization or a cause we believed in. We actually had some local flooding over the summer. So there was a dog shelter that was completely just flooded and needed new everything. So we ended up donating that week's flower subscription proceeds to that cause. And we donate 100% of it. So I don't take out the cost. I don't take out any of the labor. And realistically, the reason why I'm able to do that is because of things like YouTube. So there is this balance of still making money, a profit that allows you to sustain the ability to continue running the business, but then also trying to really make a difference in your community and seeing how you can contribute to it. I think that as I've gotten older, that has become a lot more important to me, which is what is the role of where I fit in the community and what can I do to potentially fill a specific gap that currently exists. I see a lot of gaps in our communities, not just monetary. So if monetary is something that you can't do, but you're interested in for what I'm talking about, you can always volunteer education. You can choose to try to teach kids, the next generation, on what it means to grow. A lot of kids these days have never grown anything. They don't know where vegetables come from. There's that joke that goes around, which is that some kids don't realize that bacon comes from animals. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity in our local communities if this is something that resonates with you. But that's more or less, I think, the direction that we're going to go in. I'm going to continue leaning into flower subscriptions because I've really enjoyed them. And we're going to also continue selling at the country store. But I think one thing for certain is that we will continue remaining relatively small scale. I have no desire for this to be a large volume venture. I like not needing to wake up and know that I need to make 50 plus bouquets. For me, that's just way too much with the current job that I have, the personal life I want to maintain. But I think that I can still make enough money with a lower volume business and contribute and give back. And I feel like that's a happy medium for me and also for my community. All right, so I realized that I haven't actually shown you any of these bouquets. These have been conditioned for a really long time, so we're able to just leave them out and then I'll put paper on them later, wrap them, and then put them into the buckets. But you can see that they're pretty bright and cheery. They've got some fall colors, the burgundy, and the mums should last for a while. I've had some mums in the vase in my office and man, troopers. On one of our Patreon get-togethers, so I do this masterminds with Patreon members who are interested in meeting up, someone said that she can harvest mums, put them in her cooler for 2 weeks, sell them, and then there's still like 3 weeks of life in them. So hypothetically, if I really wanted to, I think I could actually keep these in a cooler, try to sell them for Thanksgiving, which is a really popular time for flowers, but I'm not going to do that because I just want to get rid of these. And if I'm not able to sell all of these flowers, I will actually give some away to my team, my coworkers. They're always also really happy whenever I bring flowers in for them. It's a little treat. And I also get to educate them too in terms of saying, hey, it's actually not normal for there to be cut flowers this time of year because there's something called frost, which tends to kill a lot of living things. So that was a funny aha for many of them. Oh yeah, I guess that's why you have a greenhouse. It's always great to bring people who may be consumers of this stuff, but not aware of the amount of effort to be able to source locally. When people see how hard it is, they end up appreciating local better and beyond just the other benefits of why we always tout local. So let's see, this one over here. I want to save some of the bushier ones for the single bunches because those are easier. I made a couple of straight bunches. So these are the $15 ones. And you can see there's only about 3 stems in each of these. So they really are quite abundant and giving good perceived value. The white ones though are nuts. I have to show you the one in my office. It's 2 stems, but these two for $15 here. Look at that. So mums, I have really come to love. Just the timing is definitely a bit off. So I need to figure out a way to like really encourage these guys to bloom a few weeks earlier, because realistically, I am not going to be able to get other flowers into November. And mums also have a point where they cannot take frost. So if these were outside yesterday and I didn't harvest them, they would have gotten brown from the frost. Like the plant would have survived, but the petals would have gotten brown, and so they would have been unsellable. All right, so let's see. Oh my God, look at this one. Look how abundant that one is. All right, let's see. 1, 2. I'm gonna try to group light colors with each here. Something about white that I also really like here. And this appears to be really the only time of year where I'm able to grow white flowers well, because the pest pressure is down. At least I haven't had any. And the rain hasn't really done much to these. It's really just frost. With frost, you're better off growing the darker colors, which if there is any impact, it's hard to see. We're gonna make a couple more of the mixed ones. I ended up having a lot more stock than I thought I was gonna have right now, which I'm not complaining about because I love stock, but perhaps I should have gone to some other colors that were not pink, because this is becoming a very monotone bouquet, which is totally fine, but I personally like to see a little bit more color. All right, here we go. I'm gonna put 2 snaps in here, and then put another one of these. Some of these did not get great amount of water, so they look a little wilty, which is my fault. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, look at this one. That's a really good fall vibe bouquet. Perfect. I have basically a really big pile of flowers, but you know they will be fine. Over here. There we go. Yeah, look at that. Okay, 1 snap here. You know what? If we have a lot of extra stock left over, I might just bring them in and enjoy them myself. They are definitely one of my favorites, and I don't feel like I get to enjoy as much as I would like. So we're gonna change that. The other thing that I did, not related to flowers, but I love this time of year. I think it's the best time of year. It's just the festivities, the magic of Christmas. I'm not a Christian, so there's no religious tie here for me, but I just love the magic of the holidays. And typically Eric is like, no Christmas stuff until after Thanksgiving. And this year I told him, I don't care. I'm gonna start putting up Christmas stuff, even though it's only early November. And it's just because it gives me so much joy to walk around and see the Christmas stuff. And granted, we don't have a ton of Christmas stuff. It's not, we have a basement full of gnomes and elves, but I ended up going onto Etsy, buying digital rights to things that I could print out. I went to a Vista print and I printed out a bunch of these posters, and they arrived on Friday, and I started putting them around the house, and I just love it. Like, I love looking out and seeing, oh, the Christmas tree over there, and just all this holiday spirit. And so that is definitely one thing that I would not have done if it weren't for this feeling of you got to seize the moment and really live in the present. It was a bit of investment in time, but what we're going to do is we like art. So we have a lot of art, and I'm going to rotate out the art during the holiday season and then put back the original art whenever the season is over, and hopefully be able to do that on an annual basis. And it's even got me thinking, do I want to do something like that for some of the other seasons? Not going crazy like every 3 months swapping it out, but more just when spring comes. Are there certain things that I want on the walls that remind me of spring? Oh, I also ordered a couple of Christmas cups, like obnoxious in your face Christmas themed cups. Eric's rolling his eyes at me, but literally every single time I take a sip from the cup, I feel happy. I feel really joyful, content. And I am not someone who buys a lot of stuff. So I think also it's a little bit strange for Eric to see me consuming to have joy, but it's me just wanting to be able to feel like I'm maximizing the present moment and doing what it takes to remind me that we are in this celebratory season and we get to celebrate this holiday. All right, that's a cool one. Some of these would actually be really nice to design with. I said that I took the floret course earlier in the year, and shamefully I've not had time to even experiment with any designs. And a part of it is just I never got some of the equipment that I needed to be able to do it, but also just the time. I took on a new role at work this year. It's just been nuts. There's been a little bit more travel involved. It's been good in terms of the learning and everything, but it's also just been super, super hectic. And I have a good friend, Jordan, who also flower farms, and her schedule is even crazier. Like, I don't know how she runs a flower farm with the amount of stuff that she does. And she's client facing, which I think takes things to a new level. So lots of respect to the people out there who are able to do this part-time and really hustle and girl boss it, right? I think that there was a point in our culture where we revered girl bosses and then people pulled back. But in some ways, like every woman who has a kid, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you have a job and you're juggling kids, you're a girl boss. But I think people who still are able to flower farm on the side and do all of that are crazy girl bosses. Look at that, that's gonna be for me. I can't wait. I'm going to keep this over here, and then I'm gonna start wrapping these bouquets. All right, so we got our paper here, my stapler, and we're gonna start wrapping. One thing I forgot to mention was that as we are winding down the soap company, we are going to be donating all of the proceeds to a study that E is in along with our whole family. I'll talk a little bit more about that study, but we've got candles and some lump of coal charcoal bars that are great for stocking stuffers if you're interested in. And again, we're going to be donating all of the proceeds. So my goal is to get rid of the inventory and then also donate that money to a study that I'm really excited about. So we were recently in touch with one of E's former oncologists at CHOP, because that's the study that we are in, and it has proceeded to the next level, partially helped by a lot of the funding that many of you had supported last year, especially when we had asked to donate to Flowers for E. So because of that funding, they were able to get some of the manpower and some of the things needed to move on. What they're doing is they're actually testing the gut microbiome. So it involves poop samples from people. E and Eric donated poop samples, and I am the control, because the theory is that we all eat a similar diet. We're in a similar environment. Does the gut microbiome play a role in cancer? And I think that the anecdotal evidence is yes, and they're trying to show it at least with people with the mutation that E and Eric have. So I'll put the link in the show notes below in case of you want to shop for some stocking stuffers. And then we're going to be donating a portion of the Quorum's profits also to the food bank. So flowers related stuff for the food bank, and soap and candles related stuff for the cancer research. All right, so these mums consistently are taking up a lot of sleeve space to the point where I'm pretty sure if I had bought pre-made sleeves, this would not have worked. And I think my stapler is starting to falter here. Hold on. There we go. That's a better stapler. Look at that. That looks good. Oh, I don't even know how many bouquets I have right now. Here's the white one. Move it over the side so you guys can see it better. Here we are. Look at these mixed bouquets. They look so gorgeous. So we've got, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here, plus 4, which is 10. And then we've got another 6 of the straight bunches over here. So we already have a few that are pre-sold. Hopefully we can raise a little bit for the food bank, add to the money that we were going to donate from the quorums anyway, and hopefully it could be a decent 4-figure impact. So a lot more to think about on my end in terms of what 2026 looks like. I always like to start from the business perspective, which is what do I want this to look like? And then I get into the crop planning. So there are already some stuff in the ground for early spring, but for the most part, I haven't crop planned. And I will crop plan once I figure out what the volume that I'm thinking about looks like, when I want to grow, how I want to sell. And this is something that has completely changed going to year 5 versus years 1 through 3 even. I would love to know if there are any changes that you're making to your model, especially how do you think about your flower farm's role in your community, and what do you do that might be something that I haven't thought about? Leave that in the comments below. And if getting fall flowers is helpful for you, you don't have a high tunnel, I recommend checking out this video that I made a couple of weeks ago that talks about how I was able to achieve these flowers.